But let's start with what's thought by some authoritative voices to be the world's biggest ongoing conflict. And it's not Russia's war in Ukraine, but Ethiopia and Eritrea's offensive in Tigray. It's difficult to get an exact picture of what's happening, with international journalists unable to report there. But there are suggestions up to 1 million soldiers are now engaged in an offensive that could, according to some diplomats, lead to a civilian bloodbath. The authorities in Tigray said earlier that they would respect a new ceasefire. More on that in a moment, with some mixed messages emerging from their ranks. A previous truce collapsed in August. The region has been under blockade now for 17 months, and people who live in Tigray say food and medicine is running out. The BBC's Africa editor Mary Harper has been in contact with people in Tigray. So what did they tell her about the situation?
I managed to get through on a messaging app to somebody in the regional capital of Tigray, Mekele, today. First of all, he sounded incredibly frightened and stressed and in a sort of state of despair. One of my first questions was about food, and I said, is there food? And he said basically, no. And then he said there's small amounts of the staple crop that Ethiopians rely on called teff. And he said that the price of that has tripled since last year, and that there was no medicine. And then he also spoke about how drones just fly overhead all the time, and it's absolutely terrifying. So you have that sort of humanitarian problem that people are encountering throughout Tigray, and you also have this huge military offensive by the Ethiopian government, its allied militias, and also the Eritreans, who have huge hatred for the authorities in Tigray, and they are just pounding that region from the air and with artillery. So it's a kind of military and also humanitarian onslaught that has intensified quite dramatically in recent days.
And given that level of intensity, does that mean that in some way, shape or form this conflict is coming to its end?
It depends who you ask. I mean, there does seem to be amongst the Tigrayans that I've managed to speak to, and also people who are very much connected with them, there's been a kind of shift in sort of attitude and feeling about it. People are talking about maybe the forces are being on the verge of collapse, that the rebel fighters will no longer be able to offer any kind of protection to the civilians in that region who are being killed and starved to death right now. So it sort of feels like that fighting talk is dissipating, but then at the same time, the Tigrayan people, they're very, very used to fighting. They fought an extraordinary war against the former dictatorial ruler of Ethiopia during the 1980s, and this tiny force basically won. So it's not like they're going to give up anytime soon, but maybe the sort of nature of the conflict will change, and it will become more of a sort of guerrilla style insurgency rather than an out and out war.
So when we hear some voices from the Tigrayan authorities talk about being ready to accept peace talks, could it be difficult for them to take their fighters with them on that?
I am a little bit confused by this. You have a voice representing the Tigrayan authorities from Europe saying that yes, they will, that's what they want. You know, they would abide by this call by the African Union and other international powers for a cessation of hostilities. But then at the same time, from Tigray itself, the spokesman for the TPLF there, Getachew Reda, he said today that no peace proposal that has been sort of suggested would do anything to, as he put it, save Tigray. And he said basically our only option is to fight, and we will fight to the last man, and indeed women now, because increasingly women are now offering their services to go and fight. It seems very contradictory at the moment, but at the same time you kind of think, well, given that the Ethiopian government and its allies are really pounding these people into the ground, maybe they will want to destroy them even further and then force them to the table to accept a far more, well, at least from the Tigrayan point of view, a far less satisfactory arrangement in terms of bringing some kind of end to this. Basically, now it is almost a 2-year-long war.
Are we hearing anything directly from the Ethiopian government on their attitude towards potential peace talks?
So far, there has not been a response. So at the moment, there has been no official response from Addis Ababa.
That's the BBC's Mary Harper. Let's hear directly from Tigray now. Dr. Kibrum Gebrselassie is a surgeon and Chief Executive Director of the Ida Hospital in Tigray's capital, Mekele. We got through to him earlier on and I asked him whether his hospital had enough medicine.
Our hospital has been in a blockage and in a siege for the last almost 2 years, and the problem becomes very severe after the end of June 2021. We don't have money to buy drugs, supplies, and instruments. Our bank account was suspended, it is blocked. And currently, after the restart of the war in August 24, we don't have any drugs, no medicines, no supplies, no instruments. And our hospital and our patients are in a very big problem.
So how on earth do you conduct surgery at the moment?
Yeah, it's very terrible. It is very painful. We don't have IV fluids. We just dissolving table salt in water. If a patient has fracture of long bones, normally we are expected to do surgical fixation. But as we don't have these instruments to the implants, we are just fixing it in a traditional way, just before the advent of modern medicine.
What does it feel like as a surgeon to be having to use those methods with no anaesthetic? They're in excruciating pain as you work on them. How does that feel for you?
It's very painful. We have to struggle to open the abdomen, but we don't have any option. It could be a mother who needs this cesarean section, or it could be trauma patient after a drone attack. To hear the pain day in, day out is very, distressing.
So that's medicine. We also hear that Tigray is running out of food. When you have finished your work, do you have enough to eat?
It's very difficult, We don't have received our salary in 17 months now. Everyone is coming in the morning to the hospital. We know they are starving. We know they are falling due to hypoglycemia during surgery and prolonged patient rounds. We run out completely of food for patients as well. WFP is the one who was distributing food items in Tigray. We asked them repeatedly. They haven't responded. Only ICRC was trying to help our hospital. 15 kg of wheat flour in 2-3 months. That was the only support we are receiving. But currently we have no food in the hospital. We are waiting, we don't know what will happen.
Waiting for what? What do you need beyond people to listen and understand the conditions that you're living in? What do you want from those outside who might be listening to you to help?
The reaction, the response that we receive from the international community, from the world, we are not happy about that. We are telling that we are dying as people. The whole Tigrayan population is being wiped out of starvation, lack of medicine. People are dying now. But if there is an iota of humanity left in the whole world, then they might airdrop some food or medicine. Young children are dying because of lack of insulin right in front of our eyes. But nobody is caring. If the whole world is in agreement that we should perish, then what can we do?
Dr. Kibrum Gebrselassie speaking to me from Tigray's capital, Mekele. Someone else I've been speaking to is Dr. Aklilu Haile Michael, a former State Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia and now a spokesperson for the Tigray region based in Europe. He confirmed to me the news that they are ready to accept a ceasefire.
The African Union issued, I think a few hours ago, a statement calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities. We fully welcome the call. We also have agreed to participate in the planned peace talks also in South Africa last time, which was unfortunately extended.
Do you have any conditions for respecting a ceasefire?
No, by the way, we never had any conditions, but there is also a sense of urgency at the moment. It has been more than 50 days since the allied forces of Eritrea, Ethiopia, combined their forces and have been waging war against the people of Tigray. The international community has to come in, and then the cessation of hostilities has really to take place.
And when you talk about the international community, which international actors, institutions do you trust to help keep and maintain peace in Tigray? Is the African Union the best placed organisation to lead this peace building?
We have always accepted we are part of Africa. Tigray has its own share, and Tigray has actually contributed to building of the African Union. We accept the African Union as an institution. We also would like to see the broader international community being involved so that the peace process can really take place genuinely and effectively.
What does a long-term peace look like for you? Can Tigray accept continuing to be part of Ethiopia in some form?
The first is that there has to be a cessation of hostilities. We have to stop this humanitarian crisis. And then, of course, we have to identify, it will be part of the peace negotiation, guiding principles, priority agendas, negotiation areas. I can't go into the details of what will be negotiated and not negotiated and so on. But the first priority is to stop the ongoing horrible genocidal war. But the rest is there to be discussed around the table and to be sorted out. So I don't think there are any other people in the world need peace more than the people of Tigray. I don't think there is war that involves more than 1 million troops on both sides. This is the largest war in the world. And the people of the world have really to give it attention. And they have to go beyond issuing statements and concerns and so on, and practically put their hands and put pressure on all sides to end the conflict.
That's Dr. Aklilu Haile Mikhail, a spokesperson for the Tigray region based in Europe, formerly a Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia at a time when the Tigrayans were more front and centre in the national government in Ethiopia. As Mary Harper told us, there has been no statement on this from the Ethiopian government yet, but when we get one, we'll certainly bring it to you here on the BBC.